Welcome, everybody, to the MLS Power Rankings show for week 24. It blows my mind, Matt Doyle. We are almost two-thirds of the way through this season. It's not slowing down either if you're watching on Tuesday. Leagues Cup tonight, Seattle Sounders, and CCL is also this week as well. Philadelphia Union trying to get the job done against Club America. We're going to go through the top 10 of these power rankings from 10 to 1, counting them down. Special guests to come. Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic will join us shortly, I believe, from Atlanta United training, unless for whatever reason Gonzalo Pineda just ambled up to the mic, and then I would understand why he would skip on us, Doyle. Atlanta, 3-0 winners against the number 9 team in these rankings, Orlando City. This is a rivalry match. They're up 7 spots. They've won 5 of the last 6, and all the big money guys are firing. Time for Five Stripe fans to gloat.
Oh, yeah, and they're like back in 2019 form. Not quite peak 2018 form, but like 2019 form on Twitter. This was a statement win, and yes, it is still a rivalry game. And you could tell that by the vulgar chants that were clearly audible on the broadcast after every Atlanta United goal. But it was. They're playing with joy again, and I know it's cliche to say that, and it's skin deep analysis. But if you just watch the way that they're moving and sort of carrying themselves, body language. I'm a big body language guy. Like that is
Bobby Warshaw's legacy lives on.
Oh, he completely
he changed the way you think about the game. 1,000%. I can't help it either. I don't know if it matters. I'm not sure if it but when I watch, I am looking for like shoulder angles. You know, how much shrug is there?
Yep. And all the analysis on that end looks really good for the first time in a long time. And the fact that it looked really good, not only in the body language and the way they're carrying themselves, but in terms of how they played without Joseph and without Miles Robinson. It was a statement game. It was they were poor their last time out. They tried really hard, but their lines were stretched, and Nashville smoked them because of that. And Pineda said, our guys had a tough time adjusting from man marking to a zonal system, but it was much better this week. That was clear. So it's like just go down the list. Atlanta checked every box in this game.
How did they drum 7 spots, folks? So they did it because they beat Orlando. They had 4 wins and 5 before that, but you said it, Nashville really good coming up. Yeah, I mean, Gonzalo Pineda, did you see the quote? Or no, that's where I read it in your column. The quote where he's basically like, I let the players figure it out.
Yeah.
When he didn't get the DC job, I was like, man, is there something underneath here? Where was the hesitancy from DC? Because it seemed so obvious. And I hoped that Gonzalo Pineda would succeed in whatever job he took. And it's early. It's so early. But early returns are extremely good. What did you make of the quote of him being like, basically the players figured it out? And that's what I like to see. And then the 2 false 9s. Araujo looks amazing. Barco looks like the Barco
Barco looks like an actual
he looks like the Baron T Barco, the 20 goals and assists combined Barco. This was our mind's eye.
He does. And Marcelino Moreno, who is going to be Exhibit A in the give players a year to settle in mantra, because he was kind of a nothing last year when he came, and the first half of this year, over the past 6-8 weeks, he's been literally one of the best players in MLS. I think that specific quote from Pineda about letting the players sort of guide and figure it out, and being willing to learn what they teach in terms of how they play, that was a very Brian Schmetzer quote. Like, that could have come directly from Brian Schmetzer's mouth. So I got a little chuckle out of it, but also it's clearly a good way to manage a very talented soccer team. And this Atlanta United team has a ton of talent. This roster is stacked. And the best way to get them playing like they can play is to give them some agency and a little extra say in how things play out.
Oh, that's weird. It's like, God, what have these players been complaining about for, I don't know, 2 head coaches and like 2.5 years? Well, it's like they were upset they were being dictated to, essentially. Yeah, see? Yeah. And he comes right in and he's like, oh, yes, it's your team. Araujo, I mean, look, I'm not going to lie to anybody out there. I've been on vacation. I've been in Cabo. Shout out Mexico. Wonderful time, wonderful people. But yeah, watching the highlights of Arujo got me really excited. And then watching George Campbell score a goal got me just as excited. And they're probably for Miles Robinson on the day. 20-year-old, got 3 starts this year at center back, homegrown. Bang. Off Barco's foot. Nice goal. What now for Atlanta United, Doyle? Like, where can they go? They got FC Cincinnati at home on Wednesday. That feels like, I know, hey, Cincinnati, I know you just won at home, but that feels like an opportunity to kind of roll somebody and keep this going. How far can they rise?
I mean, I think this is a team that can, if they keep playing like this, they can end up with a home game in the playoffs. And I'm at the point now with the way they've played and the vibe around the team, and Joseph and Miles Robinson coming back, where I will officially be surprised if they don't make the playoffs. A top 4 finish, Orlando's not locked in. And NYCFC have played great soccer all year long, and they do have a game in hand, but they've looked a little bit more fragile over the past month. So it's not a guarantee that Atlanta's just fighting to get over the line. They have reasonable expectations to maybe have a home game in the playoffs.
I think Felipe got stuck doing interviews at Atlanta United training. God, doing your job, Felipe. That's the way it is. Last question on Atlanta. We'll get to Orlando and Tom Boger here. Joseph's comes back. We know Bella will come back in the starting lineup for Moreni. He did in the second half of this game. We know Miles Robinson will be back. Joseph comes back, and what changes about what they're doing, both the way it looks and how it comes off, but also on the field, because somebody's going to have to make way. Is that Rossetto? Who is that? Like Marcelino Moreno drops back, and then Joseph's in the middle of the trident, Barco and Arujo on either side, and all of a sudden, that's terrifying if they're both on.
Yeah, that's the question, and I think that as good as this team has looked in a 3-4-2-1, or in this game a 3-5-2 with 2 false nines, the talent on hand probably lends itself better to a 4-2-3-1, right? Because then you could play Moreno or Barco, Moreno, Arujo on that 3 line across the just underneath Joseph as the lone center. And I think that a 4-2-3-1 is what Pineda has said he most wants to play, but it's tough to mess with a good thing. And right now, the way they're lining up with that back 5, it's been a very good thing.
+7, up to 10 in these power rankings. Atlanta United off a big win, rivalry win against Orlando. Host Cincinnati on Wednesday. Check it out. MLS Live on ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. Eastern. Keep it rolling. Let's go to 9. Orlando City, the team the 5 Stripes beat. It's not all bad, Doyle. This is bad. This was not a good result, but it's not all good either for Orlando City, I feel like. Tom, unmute yourself, man. Jump in with us.
What's going on, fellas?
What's up? That's the question I'll pose to you guys. What's missing for Orlando City? Because it's not great. It's not bad. They're sort of hovering somewhere in between, and I know injuries play a big part in that.
Can I give you the David Goss answer from yesterday's Extra Time?
Yes.
The David Goss answer is their top 3 central midfielders, because there's no more. I mean, Jackson Menez has been out for a while. Junior Urso was not in for this game, and Laurie Russell is no longer 100% fit. So he chalked up what we saw against Atlanta to that. But like Atlanta was missing big pieces too, and I think even with a couple of big pieces missing in the middle of the park, this is the first time all year Orlando City basically had almost everybody else. It didn't look good, and I'm not sure exactly why. So, Tom, if you have any theories, shoot them.
Or if you want to keep dropping your phone, Tom, just FYI, man.
Am I getting blamed for something Doyle's doing again? Because this happened one of the other times I was on. You claimed that I was clicking a pen when it was Doyle, so I just want to make sure that you don't think that was me. I've not been dropping my phone.
That certainly didn't stick in your memory banks, Tom. I forgot all about that, man. I would never falsely accuse you.
I'm just saying. I don't want to get stuck holding the bag here. But, yeah, I mean, I do like Goss's theory there just because, like, that area of the field is so important. But, like, you look at the starting central midfield trio, it was Joey Desart, they had Andres Pereira, and Mauricio Pereira. So, like, 2 of those 3 are obviously starting quality players. So, Junior Urso is a big miss, and Jackson Menez is a big miss. But, yeah, I'm not totally sure. I was expecting a lot more from Orlando. I was expecting that to be a really good and a really fun game. And I was expecting to see them, I guess, take advantage of what Nashville did the week prior with all the space in central midfield. But, to Atlanta's credit, they kind of shut that or closed that gap off a little bit. And it wasn't as wide open as it was against Nashville. But, Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss there. I was expecting more. As Doyle said, that was really kind of the first time that they had just about everybody available. Pedro Gallese didn't start either. So, this is a team that's getting close to 100%, and that's something to be excited about. And, it might be like a boring thought here, but I'd still kind of like hold out just to see what they look like when they're back to 100%, because I think that this team just really does have like a pretty high ceiling if they can get that all figured out.
It's a pretty high potential ceiling, though, right? Because it's not been demonstrated this year, even though they've been very good and like consistently collected. I mean, this is their first loss in 7. They were literally on a club record unbeaten run coming into this game. So we can't say that like, oh God, they're struggling. But like, if you look at the way they've been playing, it has not been great.
It's 4 wins since early July.
Yeah,
and that's where that missing.
And there's been 105 games over the summer for every team, so that's tough.
True. I mean, that is part of it. That is part of it, and it's like, look, I'm gonna piss off Orlando City fans here, but I'll say it. Nani in the first 15 games of the year, 9 goals, 6 assists. Nani, once the heat of the summer kicked in his last 7 games, he has no goals and 1 assist. This is what you signed up for when you sign a DP like that, and this follows the pattern of each of the last 2 years. He's been absolutely fantastic the first half or 2/3 of the season, but once those miles have accumulated, he has been measurably less successful or less effective. And right now, there's nobody else picking up the slack, and that does include Mauricio Pereira, who is a shadow of the player he was last year.
The one big glaring sort of flag right now, if you compare to the top 4 teams in the East, 18 goal differential for New England, 17 for Nashville, 14 for NYCFC, plus 4 for Orlando. So the margins have been pretty thin. Tom, what about Gerald Dike? He's back. You had a good conversation with him. Folks, go check out the piece at MLSsoccer.com talking about sort of his emotional state and his physical state after all those rumors and everything that flew around him this summer after the loan spell in the championship, and then in the national team side of things. Like, where's Gerald Dike at right now? Tom, what'd you get a read on?
Yeah, so just to stick with how this like affects them this season, we can talk about whether the club may or may not have missed out on peak value as far as moving him to Europe or whatever. But as far as the 2021 season is concerned, this is a huge win that he's still here, because if they kind of sold him late after the secondary window closed, they would have been relying on Tesh Rakendele and whatever Alexandre Pato can give you, if anything at all, for the rest of the season, as he's been allegedly week to week, it feels like, since week 1. But so yeah, and when you talk about this season, like, that's another reason for optimism, is that, okay, like, they have this U.S. national team rising striker coming back, and he'll be here for the rest of the season. No more questions about his future until the winter. But yeah, so he, as everyone knows, like, he really hasn't had much time off at all since he broke into the team at the MLS's back tournament, 14, 15 months ago now. Even in the offseason, after they got eliminated by NYCFC in the playoffs, he pretty quickly went right to the national team, and then he was with the national team and immediately with Barnsley, and it's just been a whirlwind from there. So he was happy to get a couple weeks off. He said he had kind of tendonitis that he was battling for a couple months, and then the shoulder injury at the Gold Cup, and he was very quick to say, if I'm on the field, it's not an excuse. I needed to have done better no matter what, but like, it's just a fact that I had to like adapt how I was playing because of that injury. And again, I had to ask a couple follow-ups. He wasn't coming out saying like, hey, this is why I wasn't good enough. But, his mentality is something I'm super impressed by. And I think one of the quotes that stuck out to me, when he's like he's super happy for how the national team's going. He knew that he needed this time off, but he was like, yeah, obviously, like, I'm not happy about not being on the roster. Like, I'm not going to be somebody who just accepts that. Like, I want to like work harder and to be included. And this quote that I'm looking for here is, for me, I'm pushing myself on the field, technically, mentally, everything, to make it impossible for anyone to leave me out of any roster. To be so good, it takes something crazy to not be in the roster. I'm in the right place, the right situation to push myself to be that kind of player. And like, that's just a guy that you bet on, and that's a guy you root for.
Where do you think he's going to be, Doyle?
I mean, he's not going anywhere now.
Let's say October. Do you think he can work his way on?
Oh, for the national team? I mean, he would. It would take it seems like it would take a confluence of events, including the best one from Orlando City's point of view would be him getting, Gerald Dike getting red hot and scoring so many goals that you just can't ignore him. And, he manifests that quote that Tom gave us. But like, from a U.S. national team perspective, this is what happens with young strikers. They go through peaks and valleys for the most part, and he's hit a valley, and maybe he's able to pull himself out of it. And I don't think U.S. fans should be expecting to see Daryl Dike in October, but that by no means does that mean the book is closed on his national team career. He's got a ton of talent. He works hard, and he needs to start doing it for his club the way Ricardo Pepi is, and that's how he'll get back into it. And that would also get Orlando City to get a green arrow pointing upwards instead of that red arrow -3 pointing down.
Yep. Yeah. At number 9, Orlando City playing Montreal, hosting Montreal. MLS Live on ESPN Plus on Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Follow Tom Bogert on Twitter, all the work at MLSsoccer.com. Tom, thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Cheers, fellas.
All right, let's keep it rolling. On to number 8, Minnesota United. The Loons, 1-0 losers in Seattle. There is zero shame in that game. Doyle, what do we make of Minnesota right now?
I still feel the same way about Minnesota that I felt all year long, which is that they're much better suited to be a dangerous playoff team than a dangerous regular season team. Like Adrian Heath only trusts like 14 or 15 guys on this roster. Like he doesn't sub, he doesn't really rotate the lineup or anything. And then when they're without Bebelo Reynoso and Robin Lod, as they were in this game, they it's just smash and grab and hope for a point, or maybe hope for a lucky goal off a set piece. That's not a great recipe for a regular season. For a memorable regular season, and they're not having one, and it's actually put them in jeopardy of maybe dropping below the playoff line. Like if 8th in the power rankings feels a little high right now for this team. At the same time, if Reynoso and Lod are back next week, which I believe they're supposed to be, I don't really have a lot of doubts about this team. I think that 14 or 15 men, those 14 or 15 guys that Adrian Heath trusts are really, really good, and I think it'll be enough to get them, over the line and into the playoffs, and maybe even capable of making the type of postseason run that they did last year.
Well, they haven't beat a lot of playoff teams lately. Just throwing that out there. They go to Sporting Kansas City on Wednesday. That is a clear playoff team. We'll talk about Sporting Kansas City much higher in these rankings, but I just want to throw it out there. The only 2 wins in their last 8 since the end of July are home against the Dynamo and away against the Dynamo. I'm just throwing that information out into the ether right now. I mean, look, I've struggled with what to say about Minnesota United all year long. At first, it was very clear and obvious. They were 4 games off, and then they got into a nice run. But these last 8 games haven't been it. Anything else you want to talk about there? Or again, I'm talking at the fire hose with Minnesota.
No, it's
league. So I'm just trying to bring context to each situation at this point. There's
just not a lot to say about this team right now, the way that they're playing, because it's like it's a defensive action. They went to Seattle to drop 11 guys behind the ball and hopefully hit on the counterattack. They just went there to absorb, and they're very good at absorbing. Michael Boxall is maybe the most underrated center back in the league. Whenever he's been healthy, he has been absolutely superb for that team. Tyler Miller is back in net, and he's playing good soccer. And DeBasi and Chase Gasper had a nightmare start to the season, but he's been very, very good since then. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't give you those openings. Right now, though, they just don't have the firepower to push forward and punish you or create something out of nothing, which is what Bebelo Reynoso gives them. He is their best player. So it's much more similar to how the Revs were when they didn't have Carlos Gil last year. Remember that Revs team last year? They were just scrapping,
kind of grinding it out.
Yeah, and hanging out down by the playoff line. Now, obviously, the Revs have taken a step up this year and were able to put together a magnificent month without Carlos Gil. Minnesota's not at that level. They just don't have that level of depth. They don't have that level of team cohesion 1 through 25. And so it's a struggle, and it leaves it there's actually just not that much to say about them beyond this team has 2 irreplaceable attacking players, and they were without them this weekend, and so they got shut out. They need to get those guys back. That's it.
Minnesota United going to Sporting Kansas City this week. If you wanted to test, that's a pretty big one. 8:30 p.m. Eastern, Children's Mercy Park. You can watch it in MLS Live on ESPN Plus. Keep these things rolling from 8 to 7. We go. New York City FC This seems about right, Doyle. Number 7. I don't know. It's like it's such a balance for them of I get excited and I get encouraged by the moments of quality and just like blindingly a good attacking soccer. You have here comes Santiago Rodriguez to Tyus Magno to Tati Castellanos who flips it over the top of 3 defenders with the outside of his boot perfectly for a one-touch finish. Like that's 2 young DPs, and I don't even know what Tati is at this point, but he probably should be a DP.
Yeah, he's played like
it's intoxicating, but then they lose 2-1.
Yeah.
Like how do you find both sides of the coin if you're Ronny Deila?
It's a good question because at this point, it's hard to think of NYCFC as a team other than I think of them as a really good team that has started figuring out how to give away results, whether it's red cards or not finishing or giving up soft goals. Those have been the sort of the 3 boogeymen for this team. And like, even though by the eye test and then by the underlying numbers, they are one of the very best teams in this league, by the win-loss draw, they are not, and kind of saw that this weekend against New England, and you saw both halves of it, or both sides of it, because the first 20 minutes they had New England on the ropes. They were really the ones pushing the game, and New England doesn't have to deal with that against a lot of teams. But then because it's NYCFC and because for whatever reason they're a little bit snake bit, things were able to change pretty drastically by about the 25 or 30 minute mark. I don't know. I mean, and
look, the other side of this is like, there's no shame in losing away to by far and away the best team in the league, who may just break the points record and have like, I don't know. It's incredible what Bruce does and the guys that sort of pop up for him and just become incredibly successful as role players on all the teams that he's had. Like, yeah, Emma Boateng scoring for this team in a 2-1 win against one of their conference rivals is just like, ring the bell. Like, this could be, what year could this be? This could be a Galaxy kit. I mean, the same thing with Tommy Mack. Like, he just finds productive roles for experienced players, and then he lets his best players be the best they can be. And Carlos Hill, what he did on the Buchanan goal, nobody wants to get close to the dude. They can't get close to the dude. And then Tejan, at this point, you're just like, yeah, bank.
Yeah.
I mean, bank. We'll get more to the Revs here in a little bit. But I did like, the Santiago Rodriguez goal. I like to see that. I do root for NYCFC in one particular way, which is that they seem to want to sign like young, talented guys. And I'm rooting for all of those guys across MLS to succeed, because I just think it makes it a better league. And they just haven't found a way to do it all. They can't put it all together.
They haven't. And I will say that they've signed a lot of young, talented guys in the attack. The place where they don't have a ton of depth is center back. And that is something that they need to address, because like, look, James Sands has done good work for both club and country covering center back in a back 4, but he is not a center back in a back 4. Like, it's at best his third best position, but it's a position he should only be playing in emergencies. And so when you get him 1v1 on the corner of the box with Carlos Hill, which is basically the torture chamber, like that is less than ideal. And the fact that they haven't been able to sort of address that fairly obvious gap on the roster, I think is a little frustrating for NYCFC fans. I do think it's cost them some points, and it's also cost them in points, like just in midfield. Like, look, James Sands is better than Kata Acevedo or Alfredo Morales. If that's James Sands in midfield, I think that the Revs have maybe a little less purchase and a little less ability to penetrate and just get into zone 14 repeatedly, which is what they were able to do the final hour of this game.
And look, there was a red card here, folks. We'd be remiss not to mention that NYCFC were playing down a man as well here. I was just laughing at the end there, because it feels like, to me, like the Grim Reaper of MLS this year is Bruce Arena walking down the sideline in a black crew neck sweatshirt with his hand out. Like, let's shake hands on our 3 points. That's what's up. We'll get to the Revs at the top of the show. They're number 1, of course. NYCFC 7, staying in the same place. To number 6 we go. LA Galaxy. Alicia, I know you're there. Unmute yourself. Alicia Rodriguez of SB Nation. If you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing the highlights here of a 1-1 draw for the Galaxy. Kevin Cabral with a big chance early on. Couldn't quite hit there. Alicia, what's the state of the Galaxy these days, and what's the level of joy that Chicharito is back?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I think things I think are probably looking up for the Galaxy. They've had a little bit of a wobble lately, but the good news is they seem to have their players back. Obviously, Chicharito being the headliner, but they've had a lot of players coming in and out this summer, either signing with the team for the first time or going on international duty. A few injuries, although aside from Chicharito, they've been pretty lucky as far as injuries go so far this season. So I think there's a lot of optimism that they can finally put together their top 11 and kind of see what they can do.
Alicia, we saw this game, the lineup, it was kind of 3-4-3, maybe even a 3-4-1-2 with Cabral and Chicharito up top. Was this, do we think, a one-time thing just to sort of mirror what the way the Rapids line up, or have there been indicators that Greg Vanney doesn't in fact want to play a 4-3 or 4-2-3-1, that he does actually intend to go back to 5 at the back?
I think it's probably two factors. First of all, the last time these teams played, the Rapids beat the Galaxy, and the deeper context is it was Greg Vanney against Robin Fraser, and those guys go way, way, way back, and they've coached together for a long time, and so I think Vanney probably thought, I need to make some adjustments so I don't get I'm not on the losing side once again. At the same time, I think he also is looking for some more defensive solidity. I think across the entire season, even bearing in mind that the defense has been changing a lot over the course of the season for a myriad of reasons, they're still struggling in a lot of ways. And while the team is getting results more often than not, I think there is the fear that the defense is really the Achilles heel for this team this season. So I think he may be trying to find some solutions or trying to figure some things out on the fly and see if maybe a slightly different setup benefits the defense a little bit more, and they feel a little more confident as far as performing, and they don't give up silly goals or have breakdowns in the back that really cost them.
How do you think Chicharito changes this team? I mean, can he change it the way he did essentially in the first 2 months of the season, or is that us, I don't know who, dreaming of something that's just not going to happen because of this blip in his season?
Yeah, I certainly think pretty much everybody hopes that he gets back to his best, as he was at the start of the season. I think that wasn't really a fluke. I think he's shown in his career previously that he's capable of playing at that high of a level, and I think that he can continue to do so. But we'll have to see. I think also the team has kind of come on a lot in the meantime while he's been out, and there's been a lot of games where there's players out for injury or on international duty again, and it's sort of like, okay, kid, show me what you can do. And I think the good thing that's happened in the last 2 months with this team is the depth has really gotten an opportunity to play and to show what they can do. Hopefully they won't be relied upon too much, but you never know when they're going to be. And so hopefully the players around Chicharito can help pick up the slack as well, and he won't be counted on to have to score a hat trick or a brace every single time out.
Alicia, so one of the things, I'm going to pivot a little bit. One of the things that we saw from the U.S. national team over this past window was some struggles at right back. And we all know Serginho Dest is a high-level talent, even if he's maybe not a high-level player yet. And DeAndre Yedlin is very good, but he's also kind of limited. Julian Araujo, meanwhile, has been spectacular this year for the Galaxy. He has also turned down 2 U.S. national team call-ups, one for the Gold Cup and then one for this camp. Do you get a sense that he is any closer to making a decision one way or the other? And just for context for our listeners, he would have to file a one-time switch in order to play for Mexico. And Mexico desperately want him. But a one-time switch is exactly what it sounds like. You get to do it one time, and that's it. And if he files that switch, he is with Mexico for good. He has not done that yet, but at the same time, he has not accepted the 2 most important call-ups the U.S. have handed out since Cuba. That's a lot to turn down, man. And so do you have any sense that he has made a decision one way or the other, or he's about to, or anything?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't hang out in Lompoc, his hometown, very often, so I haven't gotten a sense from, the local diner or from his parents or anything. But no, to be serious, um, at least from his public comments, my sense is he really wants to take care of the club side and show he can be a consistent force for his club team. Really show that he's making a jump up. I think in part for a future international career, and I think in part to show teams abroad that he is worth picking up eventually. I think he's doing that. I think he's doing that really well, and I think he's really bought in this season. Last year, I thought he had a pretty good season on under very difficult circumstances. He was moved around a lot. Positionally, he got a lot of red cards and yellow cards. So he had some kind of discipline issues on the field. For the most part, that's all gone.
One way or the other, it means he's ready for CONCACAF. That's what that part means.
But no, I mean, I think this year, like you said, he's shown that he's taken a step up, right? Like he's locked in. And when I have talked to him in the past, he's mentioned, he really wanted to focus on taking the step up in this season and trying to show that progression. I wouldn't be surprised if he sort of said, you know what, I'm just going to take a pause, and then after this season, I'll kind of see where I'm at and see where my heart is and see what makes the most sense for me, all that kind of thing. So, he may be in a little bit different position from Efrain Alvarez, who basically was hounded into making a decision. And I think in the end, he made the right decision for him. He was already in the Mexico setup, and he obviously got the call up to the Gold Cup right away and got on the field immediately to help secure him for good. I think in Araujo's case, he has a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more room to breathe at the moment. Although probably if he continues to play well, he'll probably have a lot more pressure on him if he waits too much longer.
Or if the need from one side gets too great that they can't be very patient. Up 3 spots to number 6 are the Galaxy. We'll see what happens with Julian Araujo, but that's some patience and maturity, or something else, uncertainty, to be able to sit back and say no, because I think both sides truly do want him. Alicia Rodriguez, anything happening in soccer in California? She is your reporter at Soccer Musings, covering all the MLS teams and much, much more out there. Alicia, good to chat.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, on to number 5. Nashville dropped a grenade in their Twitter yesterday. Hani Mukhtar, should he be considered for MVP? Just asking a question. Just seeing what you guys think. And you made your thoughts pretty clear. Ben Wright going to join us here from, let's see, Speedway Soccer. Ben, you want to fill people in on where they can find you? There's a lot of different spots, I know.
Yeah, you can find all my written stuff at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. That's Speedway Soccer. We have some podcast stuff going on, but just check Broadway Sports Media out. That's where you can find everything.
Perfect. How did you feel about the Hani Mukhtar debate?
Thoughts and prayers go out to your mention.
Don't pray for my mentions. That's what they're there for, man. Just to be a repository of thoughts, good and bad. I think Hani has to at least have he has a candidacy, right? Like, there's no doubt about that. He might not be a favorite, but wow, I mean, that's exactly what you spend the money on, and increasingly that looks like a pretty good deal for Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, he leads the league in combined goals and assists. So I mean, if you're casting ballots today, I don't see how you can't leave him out of consideration. I mean, I think you can kind of get into the weeds on what a most valuable player debate really means. I think it typically goes to the best player on the best or one of the best teams, and I think right now that's Carlos Heel. But I mean, I think if you're not looking at Mukhtar, I think you're doing something wrong.
Gary Smith gets in front of a mic at the podium, and he's asked the question, should Hani Mukhtar be an MVP candidate? What is Gary Smith saying about what Hani has meant to this team this year? Get into the weeds a little bit.
Well, I mean, he has been on the Hani Mukhtar train since last year, and I think he will be the first one. Mukhtar's actually been a little bit hesitant to talk about last year, but Smith has kind of gone to bat for him a few times, just talking about what a difficult year it was for him. I think earlier, I forget the player you talked about, Doyle, but just talking about an adaptation period. Marcelino Moreno for Atlanta, and I think Mukhtar is another prime example of that.
Yeah.
Just coming over last year in one of the strangest, probably the strangest year in sports history. And he was on his own in Nashville for the whole year, wasn't playing for several months. So I think it took him some time. And I think now you're really seeing him continue the form that he found down the stretch last year. He's pulling the strings for Nashville. He's found a really good partnership up top with CJ Sapong, and I think the switch to this back three system has just kind of opened things up for him. He can either play as a second striker next to Sapong, and have a little bit more freedom to kind of drift wherever he wants, or now with Daniel Rios and Sapong starting together, he's just pulling the strings underneath. So I think the switch has really helped him out.
So let me ask you: do you have a preference for how Nashville lines up? Then, do you think that they're better with Hani as sort of a second forward who can drift, or and then Randall Leal as the central number 10 who sort of conducts things, or do you think they're better with two true forwards up top in CJ and Rios, and then Hani underneath, which is what we saw this past weekend with Leal just coming back from international duty with Costa Rica?
I think it's kind of matchup dependent. I don't think it's going to be a hard and fast rule. And I think there are benefits to playing a guy like Leal who also kind of plays a similar role, gets underneath the striker. He does a lot more of the defensive work as well, which kind of gives Mukhtar even more freedom. I think the real question I'm looking for is how they're going to start integrating Ake Loba. They obviously spent nearly $7 million on him, and he started one game. So I think we'll see him get onto the field more, but right now, I mean, I think the only way to do that is to put him up top next to Sapong and drop Mukhtar a little bit deeper. And then you're obviously leaving Leal out. So, I mean, it's a good problem for Gary Smith to have, but there are a lot of players who are close to undroppable right now for Nashville, and it's hard to start Loba over any of them, despite the price tag.
Well, and the experience that they have now with Mukhtar sort of easing into it in year one for various reasons and then breaking out in year two probably gives them confidence to not have to rush it with Ake Loba, which is a nice thing to have. And it's a well-built roster and a deep roster, and that's one of the benefits of that. Let me switch it up a little bit. One of the more interesting tactical things that's happening in MLS over the past few weeks is Daniel Lovett's inverted right wing back. What the hell? What the hell? And it's working, man. It's really, really good. Explain this to us.
Well, I think it started kind of out of necessity because they just didn't have anybody who could really play that right wing back role. I think part of it too, Taylor Washington has just quietly been really, really good on the left. He's obviously been with Nashville since they started in USL, so he's clearly trusted by Gary Smith. And so I think he's kind of come in there and made a case to start, and that has forced Dan Lovitz over onto the other side. But it's really interesting too, because you've seen Jack Mayer had been starting at that right center back role, and recently we've seen Eric Miller starting in that role. We've seen Alistair Johnston come off the bench and play that role like he has for Canada, which kind of lets Dan Lovitz drift centrally a little bit more and get into spaces more like in a traditional midfield area, and let the right center back push up and almost act as a right back at times. So it took me completely by surprise, but it's worked, and I think Nashville have been much better with it.
Last question for you here. Go follow Ben on Twitter at Ben Wright, Broadway Sports as well. All his written work. If I was a member of the Nashville front office, I would be walking around with a pretty good amount of swag right now. Like, they came into the league and kind of got put down as the boring ones. They're sitting second in the Eastern Conference. They've got a DP they can ice on the bench, who they set a spending record on. They have an MVP candidate in Hani Mukhtar. They have arguably the best defense in the league. And they've all done it in a pretty efficient way from a spending point of view.
They've spent a lot of money. They have spent. Don't start with the Moneyball thing. And Nashville
efficient. I said
Nashville
efficient.
has. How is it efficient? They spent money on two DPs that they don't even start. That is the opposite of efficiency.
I mean, come on. Jonder Cadiz is on loan.
Yeah, so they used a DP slot on him.
Okay, I'll put this easy on Doyle. Where do they stand in your eyes as far as
this is a really
grander scheme of MLS? Because this is sort of the conversation I was trying to get into, because they have spent money, but it hasn't been like $15 million money to get an MVP candidate in Mukhtar, he was like $3-4 million?
It was, I think, $4 or $5 million. Just under three. Okay.
I'm just saying that's a really good deal to go get Walker Zimmerman. Sure. And the way that they've built this, I don't think they've gotten a ton of credit off the jump, and it's looking pretty rosy. I would be gloating.
I think they've gotten a ton of credit. to be clear, I think they've gotten a ton of credit, and I think they've earned it. And I think one of the best things about it, because it was just bagging on them for maybe missing on, at least one of the DP slots, is that the team is really well built when you can miss on a DP and it doesn't hurt you at all. And that's where Nashville is right now. And the way it looks right now is they are a legitimate threat to win MLS Cup. They've lost only twice all year long. And they're a threat to get better next year if they are able to upgrade that Jonder Cadiz DP slot and get Ake Loba to have his second year similar, a surge in the same way that Mukhtar has. Am I wrong, Ben?
No, I think absolutely. And I think the key difference between this year and last year they really needed Jonder Cadiz to produce. They don't need Ake Loba to produce. And I think it's gonna be even better for him because he's not coming in under a ton of pressure. He can just ease his way in, play when he's comfortable, and I think it sets him up hopefully for a much better second year than we're seeing from Cadiz.
That was exactly what I was going for, Doyle. I was just trying to dangle the bait and bring you right into that one. By the way, it's kind of strange here. Nashville's only losses of the season. I have to remind myself of this: Inter Miami and the Red Bulls. Now both away, but that's interesting that those would be the two losses for Nashville this season. But down a spot, incredibly, to number 5, Nashville, second in the Eastern Conference, 41 points, another 14 back of the Revs, but so is everybody. Ben Wright, thanks you so much, man. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, guys. Always fun.
All right, Sporting KC at 4, Doyle. The Chicago Fire, baby.
Yeah, I mean,
add that Jose Mari goal to like the Fire. Oh my God. Highlight reel for many, many years now. That was one of the most incredible highlights of the weekend outside of the own goal in RSL LA. Wow.
There were a couple of goalkeeper howlers this weekend, and this was the biggest of them. I mean, I feel bad for Bobby Shuttleworth because he's actually been, I think, pretty reliable and pretty good for this team, and that's not how you want your opening 10 minutes to go. It is a little bit weird that Sporting KC jumped up a spot for a home win over the Fire, in which they were just gifted a 2-goal lead, while Nashville dropped a spot for a road win over a pretty good Montreal team that they really had to scrap for. But anyway, it doesn't matter that much because I think these teams are both on the same tier. They're really good teams that are potential threats to win MLS Cup. I don't think either are necessarily favorites, but like this is Sporting, and they, for I think 11 of 12 years under Peter Vermees, they've been one of the best teams in the league.
The thing with Kansas City right now that makes this win all the more valuable is that they have drawn a lot of games at home. They actually were even on wins and draws at Children's Mercy, which is not completely normal for them until this game pushed them to 6 wins and 5 draws. How does this team take another step, Doyle? Do you think they have that in them?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. I mean, Alan Pulido has been good. He hasn't been MVP candidate good. That would help. Johnny Russell getting healthy certainly helps. The midfield balance is still a little bit skewed. Like they're figuring out exactly how they want to replace Gianluca Busio. They played this game without Roger Espinoza and his heir, who's Felipe Hernandez, an academy kid who I thought was excellent earlier this year before he picked up an injury a while back, and he has. So they've had to mix and match there. They've had to, adjust a little bit at fullbacks, and they've had to adjust at center back because Matt Marine still isn't back there. So it's all a lot of questions that they're finding answers to in the regular season. And that speaks well to how this roster has been put together, and their professionalism. But we haven't seen that higher gear that I think you need to have to be an A-tier MLS Cup contender.
It's good news. What, he missed out on September window? Did Alan Pulido?
Yes.
That's good news for Kansas City.
Yeah. KC fans should have been rooting for Ricardo Pepi to pick El Tri, because if Ricardo Pepi had picked El Tri, then that would take care of the center forward rotation there for a while, and you'd have Alan Pulido all to yourself. But didn't end up that way.
Nope, didn't work out that way. Kansas City hosting Minnesota United, who we talked about earlier in the show. Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, MLS Live on ESPN Plus. A really big game out in the Western Conference. You got Sporting Kansas City at 2, just a point above Colorado, and Minnesota trying to hold on to that playoff spot as well. So check that one out. Let's keep this one rolling. Kansas City rise 1 spot to number 4. To number 3 we go, and the Colorado Rapids home draw against the Galaxy, and that feels like not a great result for the Rapids, Doyle, which speaks to where they are, which is incredibly 3 in the power rankings, and deservedly so. We were having that conversation with Alicia about Greg Vanney and Robin Fraser and the changes that Vanney made to try to match up with Fraser's team, and it just made me chuckle because I imagine the two of them like over a glass of wine playing chess and overthinking things and getting away from maybe who they are and just wanting so desperately to beat each other just for like bragging rights, you know what I mean? For when they get together in the offseason, it's like, hey, yeah, you know that game at Dick's Sporting Goods. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Here's what we did against you. We neutralized you. But, man, Robin Fraser, I don't know, feels to me like if I was an MLS team, you know, like Atlanta United was in the position to hire, and I had a ton of ambition, and I was looking around saying, who should be my next manager? Should I need one? I might be trying to, like, talk to Robin Fraser.
I mean, I don't think that the Rapids would be too interested in letting him go because he is the most important part of this team.
It's
very
incredible.
Clearly, and he has a claim on Coach of the Year, and the way the Rapids are doing it, so like the last really good Rapids team was the 2016 group that almost won the Supporter Shield, but that was a grim and determined and ugly brand of soccer, frankly, that was not replicable. This team is still very good defensively, other than that error from Yarborough, which you just saw. Yeah, which you just saw if you're watching on YouTube. This team is very good defensively, but it's not ugly soccer. You know, like they're able to be good defensively while still being a pretty entertaining team with the ball going forward, doing all the things that you want to see. I think the bottleneck for Colorado rising to the
same one. Is we going to say the same thing we always say?
Yeah, they don't have a MVP caliber or even best 11 caliber center forward. Like, where would this team be if they had a Raul Ruiz-Diaz type? You know, it's just such a glaring need, and it still kind of surprises me that they didn't try to address it. And I mean, so I think they're at it. Like, I think they're at the point where every spot in the roster, and that includes the depth, is like above average to very good. But they don't have any one spot where it's like, this is elite. And this is where we have our advantage against team X, Y, or Z. And this is how we're going to win the game when the games get really big. So it's almost like last year's Union, where they're where they are in the standings because week after week after week, they have a really good game plan and complete buy-in, and they go out there and they execute upon it. But my suspicion is that once they get to the playoffs, when they're facing teams that play with the exact same level of intensity, and probably a little bit more attacking talent, that the Rapids are going to have to really scrap to figure out ways to win.
Robin Fraser for Coach of the Year.
I mean,
so who are the candidates? Bruce is just the obvious blinding one,
yeah.
and if the Revs do what they may do, they may just come out and sweep.
Yeah,
a lot of things in awards season at the very, very top.
Yep.
But outside of Bruce,
it's Brian Schmetzer, and it's Robin Fraser. Like, that is the
you wouldn't throw Gary Smith in. What if Gary Smith's Nashville SC ends up with the second most points in the league?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but I mean, right now I have him like a half step below those other guys. What Schmetzer did at the start of this year, missing Nico Ladero, who was the system, missing Stephen Fry, adjusting the formation, like this. It's been a masterful performance from Brian Schmetzer this year. It has been a masterful performance from Robin Fraser this year. And Bruce Arena, who we're going to talk about here in a couple minutes, he has the Revs on track to set a new MLS record for total season-long points and points per game. Like, that's, those top three. I will be very surprised if it's not one of those guys winning Coach of the Year.
Colorado Rapids 3. They stay at 3 in these power rankings for week 24. They go to Portland on Wednesday. You can watch it on MLS Live on ESPN.
That's a
Plus
big one.
10 p.m. Eastern. Yeah,
that's a big one because Portland played really well on this road trip. Won 3 straight. They have Sebastian Blanco back, so they look like a different team. And Giuseppe Reyes has finally simplified a little bit in the midfield, not asking as much as Diego Chara. This is the type of test that I need to see the Rapids ace for me to truly believe that they're one of the top 5 teams in the league.
and by the way, this is a potential playoff matchup as well, because you figure both these teams are probably going to be in that, like, I don't know, 2 to 6 slot somewhere, so you could see it down the line. Colorado 3. Let's keep it going. Only 2 left. Seattle Sounders, Leagues Cup week, baby. Nico Moreno, I'm sorry to make you wait, man. If you're still there, unmute yourself. Ooh, he's in listener mode. On to speaking mode. Seattle 1-0 win at home against Minnesota. Japlalo with the goal. What's up, Nico? You sound loud and clear, so everything's working on that front. In the history of the Seattle Sounders, has there ever been anything bigger than Leagues Cup semifinal week?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one because I mean you've had MLS Cup, but I mean if I can talk for Gard Lagerwey, who from the beginning he got to this organization, he wanted to go bigger than just MLS and wanted to win it all, win internationally. I'd say probably not. I mean, you got a chance to beat this Liga MX team, get to a final, go to Las Vegas, and
there it is. Boom. That's
make
it. You've gone to Las Vegas.
and make a huge deal and get an international title. So yeah, I think it's on par with the MLS Cups that they've had over the last years.
I kid about Leagues Cup, but seriously, Garth Lagerway definitely when he was hired was like, hey, an unnamed competition down the line, that's going to be one of the biggest things in North America. Sorry, I'll get off my Leagues Cup pulpit right now. ESPN2 to the end tonight, 9 p.m. Central Time where I am, 10 p.m. Eastern, Seattle Santos Laguna. It is the semifinal to see if they can go to Las Vegas. But look, Nico, and people can follow your work over at SB Nation and a lot of other places, Football MLS as well. This team is getting Stephen Fry back. They now have Ladero back. They got Nuhu back. Jordan Morris, maybe he could get back, and that just seems like being completely spoiled for choice. Seattle Sounders, where they are right now, compared to they were early in the season, what's the biggest difference for you?
The biggest difference is those players coming back, particularly Nicolas Odero, who is the heart of this team. He amplifies everybody around him. He makes that final third that much better because Raul Ruiz has that partner right next to him. It makes him better. It makes everybody better. So I think having him back, Stephen Fry, you saw him coming in. It's not easy for a goalkeeper, talking to Tom Dutra prior to this game. It's not easy to revamp the training and simulate what a goalkeeper is going to see on a day-to-day basis. And he did that. He was fantastic. I thought he made a lot of important key saves during that Minnesota game on Saturday. So I think this team just understands how they want to play, how they need to win. Last time I was on with you guys, I mentioned that I saw this team continuing to grow because of how they were playing, their ability to just change the game with transition play and how elite they've been on counters and how effective they've been up top. Now you get Raul Ruiz, who did not have a lot of chances with the Peruvian national team. Every single time that happens, he comes in and just kills it with the Sounders. Completely just takes that on and puts that chip on his shoulder and just completely annihilates him. So I expect him to be ready to go today and just going to be extremely dangerous.
Nico, you mentioned the how good the Sounders are in transition and how good they can be when they don't necessarily have to have the ball. And it kind of is reflected in their home and away records. Like this was, it was not a given that Seattle was going to come out of this game with 3 points at home, whereas I think they're 7-1-2 on the road. They have a much better road points per game than they do at home. Does that just come down to the fact that the Sounders are elite on the counter and thus they get to play more on the counter when they're away, and they haven't quite figured out how to break down teams who sit in and bunker in, which is what they're facing more often at home?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, to be quite honest. I mean, it was 4 games in a row that they were not able to get points at home. They finally do it against Minnesota, and it wasn't easy. And you were going against a Minnesota team that had some limitations, no Reynoso, which just kind of changes a lot of things. So it wasn't perfect either. So I think you're right. It has a lot to do with the inability to break down teams that play with low blocks, very compact, and they're usually better off of that transition. I mean, that goal comes in a transition plays in some ways, and then the triangulation between Lodero, Bessonet, and finally the beautiful shot by Joe Paulo. So I do think that could be part of it. The team does need to be able to do so with that possession at times. I would like to see a lot more change of point of attack at times, and I think Joe Paulo tries to do that sometimes. But with a full healthy team, I think that's gonna just make this team even better, and those small details would once again shine for this team.
Figure Santos will try to play. Give me your Leagues Cup prediction tonight, Nico. What do you got? What do you see in your heart, your sounder at heart?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, of course. You get that Leagues Cup prediction. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, absolutely not. Look, I think that Santos is no pushover. This is a team that I was concerned about the way they pressure. They pressure extremely high. That was my question to Brian Smith yesterday, because I do know that the team has struggled coming out of the back at times, whether it's the defenders just put in bad passes from that back line, or just their inability to just kind of break pressure. So I do still think Seattle's going to end up winning today, because of how they've been playing lately, and because of how certain players coming in from international play would come in just motivated. I'm talking Raul Ruidiaz. I'm talking about Javier Arriaga, who I think will start today. So I do think that Seattle is going to get a 2-0 win at home today.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like it.
We're coming in hot.
We're going to Vegas, baby. What happens in Vegas for the Leagues Cup, we never stop talking about. We always remember it, all right? That is Nico Moreno, Sounder at Heart. Follow him on Twitter. El Rolo Northwest. Nico, it's great to chat, man.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Let's go to number 1 and wrap this thing up, Doyle. Who else? The New England Revolution, winners at home against NYCFC this weekend. Just like Bruce drew it up, baby. Emma Boateng getting the opener. I still have dreams of Tommy Mack making soccer boots that look like Tim's, but it's just I really actually love this Revs team. I love watching them. I really like the players on the team, whether it be Kessler and his antics recently that brought me so much joy in Mexico. Both his throwing the ball in the stands and then his reaction saying I would have thrown it further if I could. It's a beautiful thing. Everything happening with the Revs this year seems beautiful, including Bruce's ability to rock that black crew neck till it dies.
Yeah, I mean, this team. I thought they had some questions to answer at the start of the year, whether they would be best in a 4-4-2 with the 2 true forwards up top, or a 4-2-3-1, which would maybe give them a little bit more control over the game, but not be quite as explosive. And the answer has been mix and match based upon who's available, who's 100% fit, who the opposition is, and whether that's home and away. And Bruce Arena has gotten basically every decision correct in that regard, to the point where, the Revs are on a record pace. The Revs have 9 games left. They need to win 6 of them in order to break LAFC's 2-year-old record for single season points and points per game. It is a remarkable season.
That's incredible.
That's
incredible that's what all, and it feels like, oh, that's all.
Yeah.
Bruce has gotten you up and down the roster, everything you thought you could possibly get out of every player. He's gotten it. And more importantly, the players have given it.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that speaks to the environment, and the demands that not Bruce puts on it, but that the environment creates. It just seems like everybody's so locked in that you can lose Carles Hill for a month and a half or whatever it ended up being, and he's just gone. Nobody's saying jack about the MVP assumed winner. I mean, this is the sort of thing that Pozuelo did last year, and he faded and still won it. To me, Carles Hill is the MVP, period. It's just incredible. It's awesome. I love to see it. Like I want to see teams basically function at their highest form. That's what we all want to see, right? From our own team or otherwise when we watch this game. And to see the Revs do it, it's a joy. It's just truly a joy.
It is. And it's nice when what happens on the field matches what you think can happen when you sketch it out on paper. And Arena deserves so much credit for creating that type of culture here, where it's not just Carlos Heel, Adam Buxa, and Gustavo Bo, the three DPs, but it's also Tajon Buchanan stepping up and becoming an electric attacker or probably wingback who is going to a Champions League team, or it's that entire back line which was built through the draft, or it's Matt Turner continuing to progress and sort of write his names in the history books as one of the great goalkeepers in MLS history, frankly. But it's also like Matt Polster.
It's rotation at center back for a team that's going to win. Like that's basically that. Just
other than our guy Andrew Farrell.
Not how other teams
Andrew
have done it.
Andrew Farrell never rotates out. He never misses a minute.
We see you, Andrew. We see you. You never off the field, never out of a Twitter Spaces, bro. The support that we feel is unmatched.
But it is like it's gratifying.
Yes,
as to watch a team be as good as you think they can be, and that's like
better.
In the Revs
better,
case,
probably
they're actually being
better
better
than we thought they could be.
And like, I mean, it's for the Revs, for the Revs fan base, this is unquestionably the best regular season, the most enjoyable season I think that they've ever had. And this is an OG MLS team. This is they've been around since 1996. They have never won a Shield. They have only 1.5 major trophies, the 2007 U.S. Open Cup, and then I'm giving them a half a major trophy for the 2008 Superliga. That's it.
I don't know, dude. I think you have to get a full trophy if that trophy cannot be won ever again. Like it's
okay, that's fair.
There's like the half-life is. It's just
but anyway, like for them to it's over, right? The Supporter Shield race is over. New England has won it. They're facing history at this point. Am I wrong about that?
Will we guarantee that the Supporters Shield is theirs?
Gasman already did that on yesterday's.
Did he?
Yes, and so did Kalen. Kalen and Goss both basically guaranteed that the Revs win the Supporters Shield. I'm not willing to go that far yet because Seattle have 2 games in hand, and if Seattle win both of those, then they're only 4 points back. So things can get ugly real quick in MLS, even with great teams. Weeby, are you brave enough to guarantee?
I'm not brave enough. Just because I feel like that's the guarantee of something in that sense against Seattle is the guaranteed regret guarantee. I think that they will, but I will not guarantee it. I refuse to do so.
I'm there with you right there.
The top 10, you've seen it right here on YouTube if you're watching. Thanks for checking us out there. Of course, we go live at 11 a.m. Eastern every Tuesday on Twitter Spaces on my handle at Andrew_Weeby. Atlanta jumping 7 spots. They're the big risers, winners of 5 of the last 6. Orlando, Minnesota, New York City, LA Galaxy finish out 6 through 10. Then it's Nashville, Sporting KC, Colorado, Seattle, New England to finish out the top 5. Those top 3 teams sitting pretty and holding where they were last week from week 23. If you're watching this Tuesday, a bunch of action tonight, including Leagues Cup semi, Seattle hosting Santos Laguna, a bunch of games on Wednesday, and then we're back at the weekend, and then we're pushing into eventually here another World Cup qualifying break, which there'll be 3 games in 7 days, and oh my God, it's going to happen fast all the way to MLS Cup, folks. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you.